On the 5th of May 2025, G2 Esports won the second of a back-to-back championship for the VCT circuit in Americas, qualifying them for the playoff stage of Masters Toronto, where, as of this recording, they sit as heavy favorites among the entire world. But this team has had to fight through a lot to make it to where they are today. In professional competition, whether it's traditional sports or esports, championships are rarely won purely on the field, or in our case, in the server. The real battle often takes place behind the scenes. In front offices, in draft rooms, in long meetings filled with scouting reports, strategy boards, and sometimes politics. Players might be the one lifting trophies, but it's the management and coaching staff who build the foundation for those moments. And in Valorant, that foundation is everything. One wrong roster move, one missed opportunity, or one clash of egos behind the scenes can be the difference between greatness and mediocrity. And in this space where careers are made or broken overnight, one team nearly missed out on their shot at immortality, not because they lacked talent, not because they were outplayed, but because of poor management and offstage politics. This is the story of the Guard, a team that had everything: the skill, the team chemistry, the momentum, and yet nearly had it all stripped away. Not by an opponent, but the very people meant to support them. This is their story. In 2017, Cranky Sports and Entertainment established the Guard as a unified brand for its esports ventures. This move consolidated KSE's existing esports teams, the Los Angeles Gladiators from the Overwatch League and the Los Angeles Guerrillas from the Call of Duty League, under a single organizational structure. KSE are also the owners of traditional sports teams like the Los Angeles Rams in the NFL, the Denver Nuggets in the NBA, and the Colorado Avalanche in the NHL, among others. Certainly seemed like this was not only a well-funded organization, but one that was dedicated to investing in esports for the long haul. In November of 2021, the Guard officially announced that they were going to participate in the upcoming stage of 2022 Challengers. We didn't have to wait long to figure out who was going to be on the team, as the very next month, the Guard announced their official roster. The team's biggest gambles were two of their first pickups, Net and Psalm, who had previously been floating around Tier 2 looking for the right team. The man that would lead them was their other early pickup, Valen, a top-tier IGL who had been playing for Complexity. One of his previous teammates, Jonah P., would also make it onto the team, and their final pickup was Player, one of Valorant's OG stars after moving from Overwatch's top tier and getting picked up by T1. Clearly, the front office showed trust in this team's management, taking a few gambles on some new young talent. Unfortunately, after underwhelming results, Psalm was benched and they were in search for another initiator as their fifth. But luckily, they didn't need to look far. After scrims with more young guns, they found Trent, who meshed incredibly well with the playstyle the Guard went with. MCE made the call, and the most infamous iteration of the Guard was established. With the addition of Trent, the team quickly clicked on all cylinders, winning their first tournament of 2025. The tougher challenge would come just a week later in the VCT Stage 1 Challengers North America Open Bracket. This was the first of two tournaments that gave away open spots on North America's biggest stage at the time. The Guard's first two rounds were easy blowouts, continuing their threatening new reputation. Their first real challenge would come in the round of 32 versus FaZe Clan, who had recently rebuilt around Baby Bay and Dicey. Though it took 3 maps, the Guard came out victorious, finally besting a truly high-status name in Valorant and turning a lot of heads in the process. It was clear, the Guard did not only want to participate in the NA Challenger scene, they were here to stake their claim on it. Their next victims were another team in the midst of a rebuild, Luminosity, who were still shaking off a rusty performance the previous stage. The Guard beat them in 2 close maps, taking them to the upper quarterfinals, where they were able to beat longtime Tier 2 Titans, the Pittsburgh Knights, in 3. In the upper semifinals, where a win would qualify the Guard for Challengers, they faced off against one of the newest powerhouses in North America, XSET. This team only changed one player in the offseason and had Def, Zekin, BCJ, and Cryo. Outclassed, the Guard got 2-0'd, only winning 9 rounds in the series. Thankfully, though, they bounced back in the lower bracket, beating a crew and qualifying for Challengers on their very first try. With 2 weeks of preparation and drilling from MCE, the Guard went into the group stage of Challengers and started dominating. Not only did they get their revenge on XSET, they beat Evil Geniuses, Luminosity, and 100 Thieves. The only team they lost to in the group was the 5-0 Cloud9, and even in that match, the Guard took a map off of them. They entered playoffs as pretty solid favorites, but they were about to prove just how far they could go. First, they dispatched of Sentinels like it was nothing, a 2-0 victory that included a 13-1 win on Icebox. Sentinels were already a fan favorite team by this point, but the Guard made quick work of them. Luminosity, as per usual, couldn't stand a chance, setting a date in the upper bracket finals with Optic Gaming, who had just handed C9 their first loss of the stage and was a team filled to the brim with North American tac shooter veterans. The Guard couldn't hang with the firepower Optic brought to the table, and they fell 2-0. which took them back to Cloud9 in a best-of-5 to determine the second team to head to Masters Reykjavik. Though this time they were more prepared than ever. The first map was an absolute slog on Icebox, going to 32 rounds. But the Guard were the ones to take it, and they used that momentum to destroy C9 on their pick of Haven. And Valen came alive on Split to give the Guard a 3-0 victory, sending them to Reykjavik before Cloud9 fans could even blink.
He's backside, he's in a world of hurt, Valen! Oh, belief with the showstopper from Evan finds one, and that's all it is. Mitch is alone in this 1v3. Valen again!
And so a team built less than 3 months ago was in the grand finals of Challengers. They didn't only want to qualify for Reykjavik, they wanted to be the top seed and punch their ticket to an automatic playoff berth. Standing in their way was the ever-present thorn in their side, Optic Gaming. The Guard proved that they were ready to take on this veteran team as they traded map after map with them. And in the end, in a series that went the distance, a full 5 games, the Guard stood on top, taking the series 3-2. They had arrived, from rookies to North American champions, ready to represent in the first global event of the year. Being the champions coming out of North America, the Guard had high hopes coming into Masters Reykjavik, and they would get to start in that top 8 bracket. But the team they would happen to face first would be the very team they sent to play in the group stage to make it to play them. That's right, Optic Gaming had brought it back against Crew and Xersha, and drew their North American rivals in the upper bracket. The team traded 13-7s on each other's map picks, but Optic continued to show off their previous LAN experience, and nerves started to get the better of the Guard. On map 3, Fracture, everything was laid out on the table, but Optic would closely win 13-11, kicking the Guard down to the loser's bracket, where they would face another 1 seed that had fallen short in their very first match of the tournament, the equally young but far scrappier Paper Rex. This was also a team with LAN experience, making it to Masters Berlin the previous year. This was the very first international match for any of the players on the Guard, not counting Saya players' Overwatch career, of course, and that, coupled with the insane playstyle Paper Rex had, would prove to show visible differences on the battlefield. The biggest issues were the high-flying dual tips of Paper Rex's spear, Jing and Forsaken, who got to walk just about anywhere they wanted to the entire match, and started the game off with some insane moments. On Haven, Paper Rex had a dominant start to their attack, and while the Guard got a handle on things and even got their own streak going when sides swapped, Paper Rex took map 1 13-10. Split would be even easier for Paper Rex, going 6 for 8 on defense to wrap up the series and officially end the Guard's first international run. Coming back home after this performance showed everyone exactly the level the Guard was at. Good enough to win North America, but not experienced or ready enough to move up to the next level of Valorant. Many a team has faced these sorts of questionings from the public. Will they learn from their mistakes? Can they keep up with the ever-changing meta? Is the Guard here to stay? Coming back from Reykjavik, the Guard's mechanics and previous seeding gave them a lot of stock going into the group stage of 2022 Stage 2. But now the entire region of North America had plenty of film to learn how to beat this team, and 100 Thieves, who had rebuilt a team of new young guns around Asuna, put their foot to the floor. Their aggression a la Paper Rex still couldn't be matched by the Guard, as they went 17 for 19 on attack rounds throughout the series, and 2-0'd the Guard in a massive upset to kick off the stage. The region had suddenly become a lot more competitive, and a lot better at reading the situation. A Ghost Gaming, who had just qualified, filled with names that are now infamous, drained the utility from the Guard in early fights and destroyed them in later ones. They won 13-1 on Haven and 13-8 on Ascent. The North American teams who had been practicing and preparing pounced on the Guard, who only walked away from the group stage with 1 win against TSM, dropping down to the bottom 2 of their group. After winning the very previous stage of Challengers, they didn't even qualify for the playoffs of this one. They'd be forced to try to qualify for champions of that year via the last chance qualifier, but with their Masters appearance under their belt, they'd still be its top seed. So their first match was against a bottoming out Sentinels that were in their own far worse Dark Age. Still though, playoff Sentinels is a real thing, and they took the Guard all the way in an exhausting 79-round venture. The Guard barely made it out alive, and their next matchup was no easy feat. C9 kept it close, but the Guard was able to get away with a 2-0 victory, taking them to the upper finals against FaZe Clan. The Guard's new and improved run wasn't done, and FaZe truthfully wasn't nearly as prepared. They got snowballed to losers, and the Guard would get to wait in the grand finals, 1 match away from making it to champions. But the team they had to face would be the same team that began their cursed Stage 2, 100 Thieves, and they would be the one team that was still surging ahead of the Guard. A 3-0 victory kept them out of champions. Their final opportunity was gone. In 2023, Riot Games restructured Valorant esports by introducing a partnership system, moving away from the open circuit model that defined the 2021 and 2022 VCT seasons. Inspired by the League of Legends franchise model but adapted for Valorant, this new system aimed to bring more structure, stability, and long-term growth to the scene. One of Riot's primary goals was to create sustainability for specific organizations. By selecting a limited number of long-term partners, each in the Americas, EMEA, and Pacific regions, they provided a more predictable ecosystem with revenue-sharing opportunities, giving teams the financial security to build strong, lasting rosters. The limited number of teams also allowed Riot to focus on storytelling and branding. With fewer orgs, it became easier to develop rivalries, fan engagement, and long-term narratives that could elevate the league as a global entertainment product. It also encouraged deeper investment from organizations in content, infrastructure, and community building. But for teams on the outside, their path to the top was also paved through the Ascension program. Being the best team in the Challengers series of your region would grant you a spot at the top. While more difficult, it would be the way new orgs would have to try to enter Tier 1 Valorant. Obviously, there were limited franchising spots available for North American teams, and the Guard were certainly great candidates considering their record, backing, and heavy investment in the scene. But citing poor management, Riot revealed that the Guard would not be one of the teams that would be allowed to play in VCT. Some of the best players in the world were shut out by this new model of Valorant, and the front office would have to reconsider their investment in the esport. With the Guard unable to play on this team in VCT, many speculated that they would go their separate ways in order to join a franchise team. MCE would be the first to leave, getting picked up as a coach by Cloud9. That wouldn't be the only blow to the Guard, as Saya Player left the team to join his old team in APAC T1. Now missing multiple pieces, the question became who would be the next to go. But the answer would be no one, as the Core 4 decided to stick together and add American-German duelist Tex, who formerly played for NRG. With the addition of Josh RT as coach, the Guard were prepared to take over Ascension and compete for a spot in partnership. Despite the limited time and resources the new Challengers model presented, the Guard were top-tier competitors in the region. And when it came time to qualify for Ascension, they maintained their 2-seed throughout the playoff tournament and made it to NA's Grand Finals, giving them a seat at Ascension. And in that tournament, they would truly level up, winning every match they played up until the Grand Finals, where they'd meet the one team that had been able to surpass them, North America's other powerhouse, M80. It took 4 maps and every fiber of the team's being, but they were able to take the victory and 2024's Ascension spot for Americas in VCT. After being denied entry into Riot's partnership program in 2022, here they were. They dominated the North American Challengers League and proved themselves again on the international stage by winning the Ascension Americas tournament. They were ascending into the Tier 1 scene. Or so we thought. Despite winning Ascension, the Guard never made it to VCT Americas. In August 2023, Riot announced that the Guard had failed to meet the requirements necessary to join the partnered league. While Riot never publicly disclosed all the details, multiple reports pointed to the organization's failure to complete mandatory onboarding tasks. This included things like signing player contracts, submitting legal and financial documentation, and other back-end logistics needed to formalize their promotion. In other words, the players did everything right. The org didn't. Riot had set a clear expectation. Teams that win Ascension must meet the same operational standards as partnered teams. When the Guard failed to do that in time, Riot had to make a tough call. They revoked the team's promotion slot. Enter G2, a legacy organization with deep roots across all esports. They signed the full roster and claimed the VCT Americas slot for the 2024 season in an unprecedented buy. The players got their shot at Tier 1, but they would no longer wear the Guard's jersey. The organization that had orchestrated one of the greatest underdog runs in NA Valorant was left behind, not due to lack of talent or results, but because of failure behind the scenes. With their slot gone and no future in the league, the Guard shut down their Valorant division. It was a quiet, disappointing end to what could have been a defining chapter in Valorant history. An org that gave chances to multiple young talents and coaches slowly, painfully killed itself from the inside. But while the organization fell, the legacy of the Guard lives on in the way they played with heart, discipline, and a chip on their shoulder. They proved that greatness in esports doesn't require a decade of legacy. It just takes belief, structure, and a bit of luck. The Guard story is a warning, but also a tribute. A warning about what happens when management doesn't match the level of the team, and a tribute to a roster that earned everything they got, even if the name they earned it under didn't survive to see the final stage.